Welcome to This Week in Wrestling History.
All right, welcome everybody to what we are affectionately calling the Hell in a Cell Super Show. Welcome to Missing the Mark Wrestling Podcast, and we are in combination with This Week in Wrestling History. So, as always, I got my co-host Steve-O, and we got Jacob and Ryan in the Missing the Mark studio.
Hey.
Welcome, guys.
Hey. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. This is going to be a little bit fun. So, for our audience that doesn't know exactly what you guys do, you guys are a fairly new show. How many episodes you at so far?
We just finished number 6. This is number 7.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, so this is going to be simulcasted on both podcast feeds. And tell us a little bit about what you guys do.
So we basically look back at wrestling history, look for the good stuff, the bad stuff, the what were they thinking stuff, see how it holds up to today, what could we learn from the old stuff and bring back, what did they do in the past that we never need to see again type stuff.
There's a lot of both of those things.
There really, really is, and it covers the world. We've done New Japan, we've done TNA now, we've done a lot of WWE stuff, but there's a lot you can learn and a lot you can learn from.
Yeah, and it's not even like we just go back within the last 10 years, 20 years or so. Our first one was what, all the way back to
I
90?
think, yeah, 91 I think is the earliest we've done. We actually looked at a show from 88, WCW, which I don't think we'll ever air that one. That was kind of our test show. But
awful.
Those are always the
hard
fun
to,
ones.
those are hard to watch sometimes if you've been watching now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some good matches, but sometimes I
there's
feel
some
like
really good stuff.
it's
and
so
yeah.
different.
Yeah,
There's some
it's-
really bad ones.
I was kind of curious about this as I was kind of listening to your show a little bit. How do you choose when or what topics to kind of hit? Like, what is your game plan going into an episode?
There isn't much of one. It's just we kind of look out there, we see what happened.
We pick the 7 days, look and see what happened within those 7 days, and be like, oh, that one's probably pretty
Look to
decent.
look mostly to see if anything like notable happened on it, if there's any big event to really cover. Other than that, anything that we find interesting.
Do you guys kind of pick the week that you're currently recording in? Is
Yeah,
that what
we
you're
try
going?
to.
Okay, all right. That's kind of what I thought, but I wasn't entirely sure.
You ever have
so.
times where there's like 2 awesome things that happen in a week? You got to pick just one.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we started out doing originally. If you listen to like the first show, we actually cover like 4 shows.
Oh.
And
It was hard to hear the first one with the microphone. I'm just
Whoa! All right.
I'm busting your chops.
yeah, hey,
No,
we
they-
were all new once.
They notably had some audio.
Nerd.
issues the first one.
Nerd. Stop.
Nerd guy Jamie over here.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Gallows.
No, like the first show, we went over like 4 or 5 different shows.
Yeah, and it was more of just a recap kind of thing, too.
Yeah, and we like burned through them because we were trying to like keep the show under an hour and cover 4 pay-per-views.
Sometimes it's hard to do. Like my threshold is try to do like 90 minutes or less. Really depends on the timing too. You know, having a family and stuff like that, it's kind of hard. So
Definitely. And so we've learned since then already that find one show, stick to it, and really kind of dive deep
Yeah.
into it.
Then you'll have a show for next year.
Yep, exactly.
that's absolutely true. So, well, let's get the business out of the way here. Let's get the plugs going. So, Missing the Mark Wrestling Podcast on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at @missingthemark_. And how do they find you guys online?
Facebook, we're at This Week in Wrestling History, and I always forget the Twitter. It's Wrestle.
It's Wrestle Hist Pod.
There we go.
I should know that because I've tagged you a couple times this week.
Yep. Yeah, we only have the Facebook and Twitter, and
Okay.
we're up on Google Play, iTunes, and Spotify.
So pretty much anywhere you can find your podcasts.
Yep.
Fair enough. So, all right. So, guys, what are we looking to accomplish this episode? I think we're going to take a look back at not necessarily the history of the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, but maybe the history of the Hell in a Cell, as a match, as a structure,
Yeah, the thing
in
itself,
comparison to
really.
what we saw this past Sunday here at Hell in a Cell 2018. So, we'll kind of hit it off with that. And Ryan, you and I had chatted a little bit on Facebook earlier today, and you had some thoughts about, maybe just the structure itself, or what the meaning behind Hell in a Cell really originally was. And this kind of throws right into your guys' wheelhouse as far as the history aspect goes.
Right.
Yeah.
So originally it was brought out, very first one, obviously, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, back at Bad Blood, in your house. Bad Blood is what it was called.
Yeah.
There was 2 D's in Bad Blood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it really?
2
Yep.
BADD.
Yep.
That's bad.
Late 90s, gotta love it.
Nailed it.
So, yeah, it was to cap off the feud between HBK and Undertaker, and it was for not even the belt, it was just for number 1 contender to the belt. And obviously introduces Kane, ends a feud, and starts something else.
By the way, that happened at In Your House.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's because back then they only had the big 4.
Yeah.
and then everything else was considered in your house.
Didn't we have it in your house in Rochester?
We did.
Beware of Dog.
Was
Is
that what
that
it
it?
was?
It was something like
There was
that.
something like that where it had to go on 2 times because there was a snowstorm. I know that's the famous part of it.
Really?
Yeah, like there was like one version, and then it got snowed out, and they had to send everyone home, and they redid it. So
I wish I had the memory you guys had at some point. Like I
I'm-
don't remember what happened
I'm
yesterday.
shocked
a
they
lot
haven't
of
already
times.
brought that back for Roman Reigns. Beware of Dog. Yep.
We're gonna have a Roman Reigns conversation, aren't we?
Probably a different one than you think.
Please no.
Okay.
why not?
All right. They're not as big a fan as say I am.
I don't mind Roman Reigns. I don't like how the company reacts to the crowd reacting to Roman Reigns.
Okay, that's
All
fair.
right. Anyways,
Back to our original topic.
so originally the Hell in the Cell was 16 feet tall, and it looked, I don't want to say amateurish, but it looked raw.
It was rough.
Yeah,
it was real rough.
It was shorter because the current cage is 20 feet tall. They redesigned it back in 2006.
Which I think is almost too much. Thoughts?
It gets a little much, especially now that you have people jumping off of it.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it adds to the danger element, I guess, but
It doesn't when you see the crash pad underneath the table.
yeah, the only people that ever go off the top, I'm pretty sure, is just Shane
Off
twice.
of the new one, yeah.
yeah. Owens. Did
Yeah.
Owens go off the top? Yes, he
No,
did.
no,
Yeah, he did. He
didn't.
got pushed off the top, didn't he? No, that
He
was
went
off a
down,
regular
Shane
cage.
went up, and then
That was
and
off of the regular
then
cage.
Sammy pulled him off, and Shane went through.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah, and then Owens just got shoved off the top of the normal cage by Braun.
Shane off of the top of the cell. Everybody else has gone off of the sides.
Yeah, so and that's one of the things I really dislike about the new design is you can see the handholds
Yeah.
carved into the side of the cage.
Yeah.
Let's go back to
Oh, okay.
when they first brought in the new design. The original, like he was saying, was what, 16 feet,
16 feet tall.
and it was super wide.
Yeah,
there was a lot of room.
You pretty much went up
I
to the
remember
barricades.
they had a lot of room back then. They were doing a lot of stuff out there. I can remember Triple H and Cactus Jack. They were doing everything out there. They can almost do whatever they want in that cage.
Yeah, now you barely get past the ring steps.
Yeah, the steps are backed right up to the cage now.
Yeah, you're right. It is right up at kind of right at the edge there.
Yeah, so they made it taller, made it narrower around the edges.
So when they came out with the new design, which was when
2006.
they started introducing probably one of the worst things into the cage. There was actually a chain about halfway up. You could see
Yeah.
a bar that runs around.
Yeah.
So
There's a chain on the inside.
Wasn't that for like lifting purposes?
no, it's on the inside of the cage.
Okay, that doesn't make sense.
No, it's purely there for sound effect. It's Foley work.
Okay.
It's so when you get thrown into the cage, you hear extra
so you hear that
clanging.
ping. I didn't
But the
that sound
problem is,
good.
it sounds like someone
is it
like
bad that I never thought of that either?
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know.
All right, I'm good with
That's
that.
But the problem is the sound persists after they've moved on from the throw the guy into the cage spot, and you still hear like sounds like a chain link fence door slamming in the wind.
Yeah.
It's just sitting there rattling.
And the worst part about it was when they first introduced it, you could see the chains. They were hanging down.
Yeah, they were
so
extra long.
far that,
Yeah,
like
you're
even
right.
from the outside, you could see the chain hanging. Now you actually have to physically pay attention to make sure that you're seeing these massive chains around the entire thing.
Clearly, I didn't pay attention.
One thing you guys were mentioning before, and I thought was the handholds that you were saying that now you can see the handholds. I think at one point on the show we just watched, Hell in a Cell,
Mm-hmm.
at one point Michael Cole said, "Oh, Dean Ambrose can't even find a handhold." I think he even mentioned that there were.
It was Dolph. He was trying
Dolph,
when he was
that's
when,
what I'm sorry.
when they were coming down off.
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
trying to find a place for his foot or something.
It
And-
became
and
a little
Michael Cole
awkward
made
as he held there for a second, and Seth had to wait for him to find the spot to stand on because they had to climb down to that one dividing bar where everyone stands to fall through the announce tables now.
Mm-hmm.
So what I really hate about the handholds, though, is it telegraphs that we're leaving the cage, and the point of this structure is to contain things.
It's
And
supposed to stay in there.
Yeah, and I think that, to the conversation we had earlier today, I mean, you're right in the fact that it's kind of losing its allure, maybe.
yeah, it's supposed to be. This was the end all be all of gimmick matches.
Yeah, the whole point of Hell in a Cell
But you know what though?
is to contain a rivalry or a match that otherwise couldn't be contained prior
But
to
here's
this.
something though, the idea in the storyline of what you're looking, the big idea is this is the structure that's going to keep everybody in. And so that's what the wrestlers go by in the story. But as fans, we all watch a Hell in a Cell hoping that they're going to go outside. So the allure for us is how are they going to get out of that cell and go
What's
up
the
there?
danger of being up top too? And I'll be honest with you. Even just watching this past weekend, the 2018 Hell in a Cell, I was legit nervous seeing those guys up there.
There-
Like that makes me nervous
Yeah.
watching them, do
There's-
things up there.
There's a difference between
Not
seeing
just the falling through, like the falling off.
exactly. It's the wrong kind of suspense and danger. It's the instead of what's going to happen. It's the I hope this guy doesn't get hurt because as a human being, I'm taking out of the match. I'm now showing concern for this human being.
If he's going to fall through.
Yeah.
But I think that all stemmed from probably what we all, or as fans, most vividly remember is Undertaker versus Mankind, right? That is the defining Hell in a Cell, I think. And, they ended up at the top. They ended up going through, which since, thank God, they've reinforced it, because that obviously wasn't supposed to happen.
Right.
But at the same point, now as fans, or even as WWE as a writing team or performers, think that we're not only accustomed to, but expect to see somebody up there.
Right. And
Versus completely defeats the purpose of being in a confined system.
And that's what I was going to say, kind of counter to what Steve was saying, is instead of being into the match, you're now waiting for the leave the cage spot. So you're almost not getting the full effect of the match. Like, it's now such a signpost of, okay, Hell in a Cell doesn't end until we leave the cage and something happens. Falling off the cage, doing something crazy outside of the cage. And that takes away from what the match is supposed to be and what it can be, because 2 years ago at 2016, Roman Reigns versus Rusev had a great match, didn't leave the cell at all.
Not once. No.
And I have issues with the ending of that match, but it's a small part of that. Overall, it was a great match.
That kind of brought up something with me. Sorry, did I cut you off?
No, I was listening.
All right.
Intently.
Now I completely lost my thought. That's kind of how we do, apparently. But yeah, I mean, to your point, it's supposed to, keep that containment, and you can in fact put on a good show. When you guys had originally mentioned watching the 2016 versus now, I think the Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins match never left the cage.
It never left the cage. They did open the cage for Jericho to get in.
Right.
Which
it is what it is. But
Yeah.
at the same point, though, because of the fact that this is supposed to be like the fact that this past Sunday Brock Lesnar kicked the door in, right? That ultimately should have been a feat. Versus
Right.
we're just like, yeah, of course that happened now.
Right.
Like, why wouldn't that have happened?
exactly. They'll make something a little bit more special, give it a little bit more oomph when it does happen.
Do you think the specialness was taken away when they turned it into an annual pay-per-view versus just a I don't want to use the term gimmick match, but you guys know what I mean.
Oh,
by that.
yeah,
it was
dude.
it was
Absolutely.
a feud-ending match.
Oh yeah,
but-
dude. I mean, you just said about 2016 Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens that match never left the cage. It never should have been in the cage. What were those guys even doing in there?
Right. And
So many matches like that now.
it's made it really weird because of all matches on this year's card that should have been in a cage, don't you think AJ and Joe probably should have been in the cage?
Oh, 100%.
That one had the most heat to it.
Yeah.
100%.
That's exactly the kind of
Because it's two guys
setup
that
it's
had
for.
a personal type vendetta and feud going that legit should have settled it in a place where they couldn't get out.
especially when the previous match ended in a disqualification.
Exactly.
Now we're in a place where we can do whatever we want. No one can stop it.
And if you go back and look at Randy Orton and Jeff Hardy,
By the way, gross.
That was
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
a stomach.
That
That
ear
was like a
thing
stomach
made me
turning
want to
match.
like Zoe was watching it with me, my daughter, and I was legit covering her eyes. She didn't care. Like it was making me queasy watching
the
it.
The screwdriver got
Oh.
pretty bad.
Jacob and I discussed that at work. That's the kind of spot where we're just like, it takes me out of it, where I'm just like, ugh.
I legit wanted to puke.
If you go back and watch that one though, or look at it, all of their spots were in the cage.
Yeah.
But why? Why are these two guys fighting inside of that cell? I get the whole that they have heat thing, but then come SmackDown, the people who are in the dark match or who are there watching it get to see Randy Orton face Jeff Hardy along with two other guys in a 6-man match. Like, what's
Yeah.
the point if you're going to put them right back at it again?
You know what the shame about that too is that they could have booked both those matches to make sense in the cell, because technically you could have gone back through Jeff Hardy and Randy Orton's history. You could have gone back to like 2009 when he was jumping off the stage onto Randy Orton. You could have built a whole story around it, but you didn't. They just we're having a match and then be in the cell.
Which is a shame because he did do something new and innovative in the cell this time
Yeah.
around.
Yeah,
wasn't
that spot was kind of that scared me too.
The
Yeah.
swinging.
especially
the-
because
through the
No, not
table?
even that one. The one where he was the upside down ladder,
Oh, yeah.
where he was
That-
basically
that looked
hung up on the
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
whatever the braces are on it. Like that was kind of just
Nope.
yeah. No, I'm good.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of a shame because I think they almost even said on the commentary that Jeff Hardy wanted to be in a Hell in a Cell match before he retired. I think the only reason he was in the cell for this one is because this is about it for him.
it's
Coming
And-
soon.
and
checking off
so-
what's on the
his
list.
brother just.
I
had
wish
to-
they could have given him a storyline though. I mean, I like the match.
I think to the point, kind of going full circle on this too is, it used to be a destination and an end point, and now it's just the pay-per-view's named that, so we got to have at least one or two in there. If we're
Yeah,
going to build
it's
the structure.
It's a blip on the map. It just kind of sits between SummerSlam and Survivor Series, and if you look back at what's happened every year on that thing since 2009, not much happens.
Do you think we're in a spot where I don't think you can do it from a financial and a revenue standpoint at this point, but do you think we're in a spot where wrestling or WWE in general could benefit from going back to the Big Four and maybe using the things like Saudi Arabia or Australia as that in between type stuff versus having a pay-per-view every month that you're not 100% getting a full build into, I guess. I mean, this is talking to a bigger subject, but
So I think it would help, but they're still going to need at least one or two in between it. There's no way that they'd be able to do just straight from SummerSlam to Survivor Series. Or
it's a long time, but
I think they could definitely reduce the number because pardon me, I think there's actually 13, if I'm not wrong.
'cause they boosted it.
They
last
boosted
year.
at one point. At least there was 13. Then
I
if-
believe you're right. I disagree with you guys entirely on this. I think they have to have one every month because I'm going to tell you guys, if they don't have a pay-per-view every month, I'll be the first one to cancel my WWE network. I won't. That's the only thing I really watch it for at this point. So I pay that $10 a month because I want to watch those shows.
it's 100%
So,
worth it at that point. But
I could see that. I would want them to start bringing none of these stupid names anymore. Like Roadblock, get rid of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Bring back some of the WCW pay-per-views.
I would love that.
oh, could you
Get-
imagine Halloween Havoc?
Halloween Havoc.
I don't know why I
Starrcade.
want that one back so
Eh,
badly.
maybe it's just
Because it was awesome.
Maybe it's just fall's coming on. We're getting all the seasonal stuff.
That could be, yeah.
But-
You got your pumpkin spice.
Yeah,
and-
exactly.
I mean, even
Wow,
Bash at
could
the
we-
We're
Beach.
so basic here.
I will defend pumpkin spice to the death.
But you
we're really shining our white privilege right now.
Yeah, it's not the best.
But then,
Sorry.
or even something like Bash at the Beach. Like
Yeah.
if you're gonna have a pay-per-view every month, bring back the nostalgia factor, and have the commentators before this whole thing starts talk about it.
So are we all in agreement that Hell in a Cell maybe shouldn't necessarily be an annual event,
Yeah, I don't
but
need
maybe
gimmick
a
pay-per-views anymore.
specialty match?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely the end of the gimmick pay-per-views. Like, make
Like
especially
TLC can go away.
I can keep
Yeah.
Extreme Rules
Funny-
because that's wide enough where you can.
But even Extreme Rules, you're not doing it every single match. Like if you're gonna call a pay-per-view Extreme
Yeah.
Rules, every freaking match better be a gimmick match or an Extreme Rules match.
Yep.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah. Back
not,
off.
not one.
Back off the gimmick matches. At least make Hell in a Cell something special and unpredictable. Because when we know what's coming up on the calendar, all right, well, we see what's coming down the road. Out of nowhere, a sudden special one like at Mania feels a lot more special.
Yeah.
You could even say the same thing about Money in the Bank. Why does that have its own pay-per-view?
See, Money in the Bank, I'm kind of 50-50 on that one because we don't have King of the Ring anymore, right? That used to be one of the big four.
Yeah.
So it used to be what?
No,
it
was-
used to be WrestleMania, SummerSlam, King of the Ring, and Survivor Series. That was the four. Am I missing one somewhere?
No, it was Royal Rumble, Survivor
Royal
Series.
Rumble. I'm
It
sorry.
was
How the hell
five.
did I forget
They're
Royal
like-
Rumble? You're
like
right.
King of the Ring was that level for a little while. Maybe not Royal Rumble.
But I almost think because of I almost at this point, and it doesn't make any sense whatsoever because the Royal Rumble is so iconic and historic that the Money in the Bank means more than a Royal Rumble win does.
Yeah, it does because it's flat out better.
Well, it's the one
Yeah.
concept they've had in the last 10, 15 years that is stuck. Everything else they kind of this is going to be awesome, and it kind of is.
Don't make it its own pay-per-view. Have it show up in another pay-per-view. Like
Wasn't the first one at WrestleMania?
They were at WrestleMania.
Oh, yeah, they were
for
at WrestleMania for a
quite some
long
time.
time.
Like, why shouldn't that actually should be it? It should be there should be a women's match and a men's match at WrestleMania.
Get everyone on the show.
exactly.
It gets everybody like yeah.
That's
to your
why
point,
that's why it was made
get
up.
everybody
It
on the
was a
show,
better
but
version of
also
that.
now you have from WrestleMania to WrestleMania to cash that in.
Yeah, and not to mention, okay, you had your Rumble winner, and we know when that's going to end. Okay, now we have another thing to kind of carry us through the second half of the year.
And you got some of that. I mean, one of my favorite with that point is like when Seth Rollins was carrying that briefcase. Like you never knew legit like when he was in cash in. You knew he was a Weasley heel, and it was just kind of fun not knowing at that point.
Or somebody like Dolph Ziggler.
Yeah,
Like it.
or Kevin Owens would have been a great like. Braun, you could have just put him in a main event and put him on a title shot anytime you wanted. I think Kevin Owens would have benefited greatly and done amazing things with that briefcase.
Braun didn't need it, especially
No.
for this pay-per-view.
Especially, it's going to have a snazzy finish. Is that cash in done now? So that's his cash in's a
Yep.
non. It's a,
Did they
a
even address
non-finish.
that on Monday?
No, it's not. It's done.
It's
That's
gone.
they're
It was
never
just
gonna
another
talk
way to
about
get to
That's go-
Crown Jewel.
That's gone again.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Yep, and it's just there's no need for that many.
Well, that's kind of interesting now
Things
that
floating.
we're kind of addressing something that's kind of important. I think we're talking Money in the Bank as a pay-per-view, and we're talking Hell in a Cell as a pay-per-view. These are two things that their big match for them was essentially wasted. Now it's like it was just leading up to some show in Saudi Arabia now for both of those shows. So I think that to me is as big an argument to not do gimmick pay-per-view so much, and this one especially, this past show. If I'm going to think of the best matches from Hell in a Cell 2018. Neither one in the cell, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. When you start getting 2-3 matches per Hell in a Cell pay-per-view that are in a Hell in a Cell, what's the point?
Right.
You're just
like-
doing it because that's the name of the pay-per-view.
Right. Back from 2009, I think there was only one pay-per-view that had one Hell in a Cell match on it.
Yeah,
All of the other ones had max. I think there was one that had 4.
3 was the most.
3 was the most. So they've all had 3 or less. And some of them even happened all together. Like there was, I think in 2011, there was back-to-back Hell in a Cell matches.
Really?
Like, why?
No point for that.
Yeah, we were actually looking up the history earlier. There's only been 1 year since the Hell in a Cell was invented where it wasn't used.
What year was that?
2001. And
That's right, because the 6-man was in 2000 at the very end. in December.
which I feel like that was almost the start of the end of the Hell in the Cell, and that's probably why they took a year off of it.
I remember being so excited for that match, and I thought it was so silly. Rikishi
Yeah.
fell into like a truck bed with like confetti
Hay in
on
it.
it.
It was a pickup truck full of hay.
It was
They backed it up, and you're just like, oh,
nice soft landing,
well, here this comes, and you're just like, eh.
Surprised they didn't break the truck.
right?
But yeah, this year though, it was just like to me, the tag team title match and the women's title match were not the Ronda match. I mean, the Charlotte Becky match were so much better than anything in the cell. At least my opinion.
Yeah, and that's not to take away from this pay-per-view because I mean overall I thought this was pretty good. But I'm seeing a trend lately. Did you say, man?
Yeah, is the trend that they start off awesome and they fall off the face of the earth after the first few matches? Because that's
No.
the trend I've been noticing.
Wow.
I
Am I the only one
agree
that thought this was a good pay-per-view start to finish?
So,
Well, all right, start to almost finish.
yeah.
No?
So the
So
first 3 matches were good, and
Yeah.
then
the first half was great. The second half was less
Yes.
great. Even that said, though, I think they're trending in a better direction than they've been trending for like the last 2 years at
I'll
least.
agree with that one.
I don't want to derail completely off of what we were just talking about and get completely into now, but I mean, I even things, we talk about the gimmick pay-per-views. We forgot, like, we've got Elimination Chamber. How that match would be kind of cool in a different setting as well. Just in a standalone, not calling the pay-per-view Elimination Chamber.
Right, just not busting it out until it's needed, because I think as fans we can kind of start realizing, oh, I like this top guy, I like this top guy. Wait, there's a lot of top guys here right now, and there's only one belt to go around. I don't know what they're going to do. Oh, out of nowhere, Elimination Chamber.
yeah,
Especially when you go back and look at like New Year's Revolution. I'm
I
almost
was there.
positive that was one of the
I was
that,
at 06.
that was one of the earlier
Where
ones.
was
right?
that?
That was the one where Edge cashed in afterwards.
That's your boy.
That was
You have
high point of my wrestling fandom. But
Yeah.
As well it should be.
easily. You have a match like the Elimination Chamber happen. John Cena gets up all bloodied,
Yep.
and then all of a sudden you have the payoff of another gimmick match
Yep.
that starts off probably one of the best feuds in the mid 2000s worth of WWE.
Easily, yeah.
And they were both natural because they really didn't have a lot of guys back then, but they had some up and coming guys and some guys who were like Shawn Michaels, who were hanging around, Carlito, Chris Masters, who were up and coming but had no business being in a main event by themselves. So it just kind of worked for that show. I can tell you guys from being there, I'll never forget. So I was with a couple guys, and after the chamber match was done, they're like, "Oh, we're gonna go." They wanted to leave right away to get beat parking. We ran so fast back to our seats when that guy came out after. I never run so fast. I think I almost pushed a girl down. I felt bad, but I had to get back to my seat. But that was just a crazy, crazy time.
I mean,
And
when you have somebody like John Cena, who at that point was kind of getting to his peak,
yep.
and then you have Edge, who comes out and starts the ascent to being arguably one of the best singles wrestlers in history.
No argument here.
All based off of the Elimination Chamber and Money in the Bank. Why couldn't they do that with Hell in a Cell?
It's almost become these gimmick matches and these pay-per-views lately have become more of a continuing story versus it used to be the, to your point earlier, the end all be all or the end of a feud or the cap or the happy ending of whatever it is that you're currently working on. Instead, now every single pay-per-view seems to be it's furthering a story instead of
That
just
never ends.
capping one off. Yeah.
Right. And almost worse, this one was almost a step backwards because how many people were clamoring for Brock Roman part meh?
Yeah.
It-
I'm sick of Brock in general, but that's a completely different topic.
Well, exactly. But do you think he really has a legitimate chance of winning the belt at Crown Jewel?
Brock?
Yeah.
No.
Well, so
No.
why is he here?
No.
It's a payday.
Yeah, it's a payday for him.
A big payday,
Yeah,
too.
huge
I heard
payday,
he's getting
I'm
like 7
sure.
figures just to do the match.
Yeah, but
Jesus. For what?
Why?
Is he really getting a return on investment at this point?
He's
I
got
can't fathom.
his
I-
contract was for 2 matches,
Yeah.
and he's making bare minimum. They were saying $2 million just for the match in Saudi Arabia.
Come on. It's
And no one wants to see this again. Like,
no.
is
I'd rather
everyone's
watch.
done.
I'd rather watch Roman and Braun over and over again than see Brock Lesnar ever get in a ring again.
Yeah,
But
we need a break from it, and it's burning the audience out. And we thought we were done with it, and it's back.
So we had this already. We had Brock, Braun, Joe, and Kane.
Which I don't know how Kane got in there, but that's beside the point.
Monster against monster.
Yeah, no,
kind of
I
thing.
get it. It was just stupid.
It was awful.
Yeah.
But we've had it already. Now you take out one arguably better wrestler in Joe and replace him with Roman, and then you don't add a fourth one in. Again, why?
Yeah, it feels like it's treading water right now, waiting to get to probably Rumble, because I don't see Survivor Series being anything big.
No, and that's.
Are we
It's
going to
not-
build up to another SmackDown Raw match?
It's not like they're gonna do another Shield versus Braun and his.
I kind of like the idea of leaving Survivor Series as a champion versus champion from each brand.
I'd
I find that interesting.
Yeah, I'd be fine with it just being like a one-off. Hey, for one night, everyone's kind of coming together to see who the better brand is, and we're not doing it in a big 5 versus 5 match.
Yeah. Which, I mean, those were okay back in the day, but do you remember watching those old pay-per-views and literally watching match after match
Yeah,
after
their
match
whole
of
their
that?
whole show is watching old pay
Oh,
per
it's
views.
Yes,
Done.
yes, we do remember that.
That's their whole show.
You don't know our pain on some of these.
I keep forgetting that's what you guys do.
That's our thing. We suffer for our art.
It's literally what we've been doing.
That's got to be painful. Let's be honest.
There's ups and downs.
All right, let's revert back to the original conversation before we even got started into any topics whatsoever. I know you guys had kind of tested the waters and contacted me a little bit and asked a couple questions when you were thinking about starting a podcast. How did you land on this? Like, what decided? Like, man, you know
He
what?
says it too.
No, it wasn't. It's not a negative. It wasn't supposed to be that
this
way.
all about?
Like, what the hell did you think of this crap? No, I'm just kidding. No, it like what? How did you when you went around deciding what am I going to talk on a microphone every week about? Like, how did this subject land?
Well, I'm old, and
That's fair.
Jacob's not, so
Also fair.
there's some entertainment value in him going back and seeing this stuff for the first time.
Okay.
And then I'm able to look back on some of it and go, oh, I was actually watching when this stuff was happening.
How old are you, Ryan?
I'll be 38 in about a month.
Okay,
It's
I didn't
not
realize you were
bad.
that much older
It's
than me.
not that
That's
bad,
not
but
that old.
No, it's
Yeah,
not
but
that
Jacob,
bad,
you're still in your
but
20s, aren't you?
I just turned 27 in May.
yeah. We're literally covering some shows that he wasn't alive for, and I vividly remember. It's
That is
great.
fantastic.
I mean, we went back and watched. The last episode was what, the first WCW?
Yep.
I just
First
listened to
Nitro.
Two episodes.
I just
ago was
listened to
the first
Bischoff's
Nitro.
podcast on that.
And
That show's interesting. In case you guys haven't listened to that,
Well, you have
What's,
not. I might
what's
give
this
it a listen.
podcast?
it.
What's the
Eric,
title of it?
83 weeks.
I know what an asshole he is. 83. Get out of here, Eric.
It's
Bischoff.
not like you have
Congratulations.
one thing.
It's so entertaining because his co-host Conrad Thompson, who does like what now 3 or 4 podcasts at this
Yeah.
point, he busts his balls so freaking hard and gets
Mhm.
Bischoff riled up. So sometimes it's hilarious, but it's interesting to like find out from like Eric's point of view, like what was going on during that time and what the train wreck it really was and what he was legit going through when everybody's just like, oh, Eric Bischoff, he rose it up and then destroyed it. And like there was so much other stuff going on. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Not to plug somebody else. Not like he needs a plug, man. He's stretching the
Right.
imagination, but it's interesting.
83 weeks.
Yeah.
I actually like
But
that
we-
better than Bruce Pritchard's podcast, to be honest with you.
yeah,
I find there's a little more turmoil, I guess, with Bischoff's podcast because Conrad just loves doing episodes to call out Bischoff.
he pokes the bear.
Oh my God, he punches the bear in the face.
But like, so we went back and watched the first Nitro, which was in 1995.
Yep.
I was
the one in the mall.
yeah
Yeah, the
Oh,
mall.
Mall of
The one-
America,
yep,
wasn't it?
The
Yep.
Mall of America. I was 4 years old.
1995, you said?
I was 4 years
Yeah,
old.
I was
10.
11.
I was 10 years old.
I was 14. Yep.
So
Now that we all know how old we are.
I'm sitting there going back and watching this, and who was it? Who was the commentator that I hated?
It was Mongo. Steve Mongo McMichaels.
Probably
I'm-
didn't know we played football, did you?
I knew that.
Okay, all right.
Didn't know he had anything to do with wrestling, but the minute I'm hearing this guy talk, I'm like, what the hell is this?
He was
He's
a 4
awful.
horseman.
Yeah, he was the
eventually.
worst horseman.
You know how you know Ryan is a true wrestling fan? Like, we all came up, like, you and me came up, like, 13, 14, our formative years, right in that Attitude Era when it was, like, the hottest thing ever. He reached his formative years when it was 95, like, the worst year in wrestling, potentially.
I remember
And
when
he
the
stuck through
Rockers
it.
were together.
Wow.
All right, I'm just going to
Yeah.
put the microphone down now.
Yeah,
Think about that.
Yeah, I'm
Did
old.
we ever get to the point of like how you got to this conclusion of this is how you're going to do a podcast?
No, we were just bored.
Oh no, it was
Oh.
that he's old, I'm young.
So
Oh, okay,
It's
all right,
kind of
all right.
it's kind of like he's been through it, and a set of fresh eyes, a set of wizened eyes on the. I like it.
What was that word you just used?
Wizened?
Is that a word?
That's
It
totally a
actually
word.
is a word. Yeah.
Perfectly cromulent word.
Oh, God.
I didn't know what that was. Okay.
I got nothing now. I was
Just
just
taught me
it
right
was-
there.
now he's just trying to be smart,
yeah.
jerk.
Hey, look at my
happens.
thesaurus real
Simpsons
quick.
reference over everyone's head.
I gave up on The Simpsons a long time ago.
It
But
was
it's-
during the good years. Anyways.
Yeah. It's one of those things too where if you go back and look at a lot of the wrestling podcasts, I haven't been able to find one that was looking back at old stuff other than Bruce Pritchard's maybe.
Right.
Yeah, and about to say, we're not going to be able to keep up every week and watch the shows every week. So we knew it wasn't going to be our best wheelhouse.
People probably wouldn't like our takes on some of the new stuff anyway.
You are very.
We're smarky.
Yeah, I would almost say very. To go in political terms, very liberal.
Yeah.
Very liberal on some stuff. You and I, we've had some arguments on Facebook.
Oh, yeah, a little bit.
Then you got mad at me because I didn't plug your put your show in the last. You're plugging the last one. Sorry.
He
I mean, we were
deserved that.
trying to return the favor. And jeez.
Listen, all right. So here's what legit happened. All right. So for some reason, when I was putting the show together and doing the editing, you guys sent me over the clip, and it was in stereo, versus I record in mono, and it does whatever it's got to do. When I put the show together, it severely messed up to the point where I couldn't find it and upload it. So I actually edited twice to get it to work, and I
Ooh.
was panicking because we did it Thursday night or something, and the show was supposed to come out the next morning. I'm sitting in bed, and my wife's pissed off that I already took an hour and a half to record a podcast. Now I'm sitting in bed after my daughter's gone away, just editing. I'm like, honey, it's gonna take me 5 minutes. 25 minutes later.
Oh, I've had that discussion.
So yeah, so I will get. I don't need to do it this time because you guys are here. But next show, I promise I will put it in there. And
Yeah.
So-
About to say, the other main reason we started the podcast was our wives wanted us to do something.
I was literally
Aw.
told you
Aw.
need to find something.
what's that like?
Yeah.
Because our wives want us to end this podcast.
Oh,
any day
if
now.
we gave this up
Like,
tomorrow, my
they'd be
wife would
so
probably
happy.
be really thrilled about this because I mean, you guys know
Nope.
at this point it's
Oh.
literally a money pit.
So, oh yeah.
Until we can
yeah.
get big enough to get sponsors, but unfortunately, you need capital to grow, and
Yeah.
it's just a.
So we're both
a thing.
married to nurses who have very fulfilling jobs. We both work in tech support. Not exactly the most
That's
fulfilling
where I met you
job.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not the most fulfilling thing, but I was told you should find a hobby or something to do that makes you feel like you're fulfilled.
That's gonna change when you have kids.
Here we go.
Just saying.
Oh, 100%.
If you have kids, I mean, whatever.
100%. But
Yeah, I feel my my time slipping away as I have another child on the way. So,
Congrats, by the way.
Thank you very much. Steve does as well.
Congrats.
Dude,
on-
watch
Our
my
kids
first
are going to
kid.
be, what, a month and a half apart?
My wife has already said, so when we have this kid, you're going to finish this podcast up, right?
Did she really say that?
No, not like that per se, but it's hinting.
I'm going to yell at her because she's actually upstairs hanging out with my wife right now. So
That's great. I'm sure all our audience is super excited about our wives being
Yes,
upstairs.
please
and
tell us more
being-
about your
yes,
podcast,
please.
Widows. This is great.
Yeah.
Enthralling.
ugh, shut up. That's what we'll go with that. Where were we? I have no idea where the
I
heck
don't
we
know.
even
were
were at this
talking about Hell in
point.
a Cell.
We were talking about Hell in a Cell. All right, let's just get this right out of the way because
Boom.
you guys are going to complain about it at some point or another, and I just want to get it out of the way now. The
Say it.
red cell, and go.
I liked it.
Really?
It
I
was
liked it. Yeah.
Okay.
visually disturbing. It hurt my eyes the first few times I saw it, and it was just jarring.
I think I would have been okay with the bars being red, but not the chain link.
agree. Yeah,
That I've been okay with. The fact the whole thing was red. All right, Jacob, go.
Yeah.
You're growling.
I hated it when it was in Impact Wrestling.
We don't mention that on the show.
Well,
Yes.
well, we do now.
We don't say these words.
Impact is a 4-letter word.
So, side note, have you guys seen it recently?
Yeah, because they posted it all over social media.
It's not as bad as it used to be.
People keep saying that, but it was pretty bad. So
Not as bad as it used to be. However,
Still red.
it's not as bad being punched in the
red,
face.
The red was
How could
Right.
it not?
the red was awful. It was awful in 2008 when Impact was doing it. It's awful now.
Again, I think if you stopped at the bars and not did the chain link, I think we'd have been okay.
So my biggest question is, was it red paint or was it actually red plastidip to make it hurt less when you get thrown into it?
I don't want to.
Or did they do it because it started to rust and they're like, oh no, it's going to look bad?
I think they powder coated it.
I think it's actually a new cage. So
Oh, 100%. I think it's a new
yeah, I
cage.
read it's actually a new, like it's actually smaller. So I think it was actually done to reduce.
you know
the
what it
weight.
feels like? It feels like they had this idea when it was going to be like a Raw only show, and then it's going to be both brands now. Well, let's keep it red.
You might not be wrong on that.
They said they did visual tests on it to make sure it was going to be okay. Which I mean, ultimately, visually, it was okay, especially because most of the camera angles were from inside the cage.
Yeah.
Right. When they were inside
Which
the cage, it
helped.
was fine. My wife actually happened to catch like the Jeff Hardy Randy Orton match with me for the first few minutes, and she was put off by it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So visually,
The fact that your wife actually laid eyes on it was amazing.
I could also just imagine that it's Vince going, it's Hell in a Cell. Make hell is red. It's hell. Make it red. Make it red, damn it.
God damn it! Yeah. Love our Vince. Vince, call us up. I'm gunning for a pre-show gig. I'm telling you. I'm gonna go all Sam.
Work for
Roberts
Sam
on
Roberts,
us.
yeah.
Wouldn't be the worst thing.
I mean, you got to grow out the afro though. So
Clearly, you can see my hairline right now, and I've been relished to shaving, and Steve's in the same spot. He's just wearing a hat right now.
Our Afro days are behind us.
I never had any, but
Our hair option days are behind us.
that's fair. Yeah, it's this or complete garbage.
Yeah, there's no options. So Hell in a Cell, good show. Bad show. Did you guys like it?
like I said, I loved the first half.
Oh, I love the first half.
Way to bring it full circle, buddy.
Yeah. Second half definitely dropped off a lot.
The best match on that entire card, and I'll fight any one of you on this.
let's
I
hear it.
kind of want to
was
fight you just because.
Let's hear what
just
it
to
is.
see.
I want
Yeah.
to hear what it is.
Drew and Dolph versus
Yes!
Seth and Dean.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was the best match.
So, and can we all take a moment to appreciate no rebound offense from Dean?
Oh, thank God.
The little toe tap and the
That
Oh.
didn't kick off the
I think
corner, didn't
I
bounce
think
through the
he's-
ropes.
I think he's starting to drop a lot of those little flourishes.
I like
He's more
serious
serious
slash
now.
crazy Dean versus
The haircut changed
crazy
him.
slash weirdo Dean.
So my comment on it was his offense was still very kinetic. It was still a lot of moving around, a lot of motion.
There's a lot of big words here, Ryan. Are you trying to show us up?
That's what I do,
yes.
Okay.
and
Professor.
I'll take that. And got rid of the silliness out of it.
And he's been a lot crisper than he has been. His clotheslines looked a lot better.
Well, yeah,
His-
and I think to your point, the quote unquote gimmick stuff that he was doing before, the whole running off the turnbuckle or falling through the middle rope and coming back through. Like, all that took away from the fact that he's legit a good talent.
Yeah,
and
very
I
much.
mean, we talked about this on shows before, Steve, back in the day, where I just couldn't stand Dean Ambrose. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I like Shield Dean Ambrose better than any other version of Dean Ambrose.
You know, I like Dean Ambrose when he's interacting in some way, whether it's a team or as foes. They're always bringing out the best versions of each other.
Well,
That's a feud that can go on forever, or interaction, friendship / feud that can go on forever, as far as I'm concerned.
I'd say for sure check out the Raw match he had with McIntyre.
That's a great match.
Yep.
The finish is awesome.
He was a lot more technical, and it was very surprising when all of a sudden I turned the TV on and here's Dean Ambrose locking in a cloverleaf.
Yes.
I'm like, what the hell?
I love everything about the four of them right now.
Oh,
yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
I would much rather see, like, I really like Dolph in the Intercontinental type of angle, and I was really hoping that he would hold on to the Intercontinental title for a while and push McIntyre into the Universal title picture. So it's kind of like, yeah, they're a team and they look out for each other, but they're both still singles and going after titles.
Right.
And I think McIntyre deserves to be.
I think he'll
In that
eventually
upper
challenge
echelon.
for
Oh,
that Universal title. within
Yeah,
few
that's a
months.
matter of time, and
I
he's
just don't
young
want.
enough.
I just don't want that to slip away, though.
I don't think there's much concern there. I mean,
He's too good at this point.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. It from how strong he looked in that match at Hell in a Cell, the fact that he walked out and carried Dolph
I love that
out,
that touch.
that there was he looked. They booked him stronger than any of the four of them.
Yes.
Or, out of the four of them.
and they put him in a position, and he nailed it. Like, the finish to that tag match, he was right where he needed to be at that moment and didn't cause Seth to have to sit there and
The
hold
timing was
Dolph up.
fantastic.
He was just right there as soon as he needed to be, and it looked flawless.
And that's the crazy thing. His two matches, the one at Hell in a Cell and the one on Monday against Dean, both needed his timing to be impeccable for the finish to work, and the timing on those kicks, perfect each time.
I like the fact that he's open and honest. The fact that when he got let go from WWE, his entire goal, no matter what he did, was to get back.
Yeah.
And he did the Indies, he did the TNA thing. He did whatever he needed to do to make himself a better performer.
yeah, he went out and he learned.
And he's come back, and it was one of those things where it's like you see him come back, like, that's awesome, he's back. Please don't drop the ball on this one, and they haven't yet. And
Yeah.
that's an attestament to the work he put in at this point.
Yeah, and I'm glad the company usually does right by people that put in work. That's what he did. He went out there and he put in work.
So with that being said, I want to throw this out to the group. Somebody who puts in work and who makes the best out of every situation he is in really hasn't. I can't remember the last time he's been featured on a pay-per-view. What about Kevin Owens?
That's like what came out of nowhere, but
It did, but I mean, let's be honest. We came in with an agenda, and we're so far off of that agenda. But this has been great dialogue.
You'll notice something if you look at our logo back there. Kevin Owens is the logo silhouette. Which,
Yeah.
by the way, I've been on the show for over a year. It took me like about a year to recognize that was the case. I wasn't on the show right when I meant the logo.
Don't say
was
that.
made.
We don't have to fight any trademark
Yeah,
stuff.
don't do
It's
that.
just a big
It's
guy.
it looks like it might be possibly Kevin Owens, but it's not. I'm
It's
sorry.
me.
It's
With-
us dressed as Kevin
with
Owens.
hair or something.
And in high school?
In his high school gym class, getting upset.
So
I was thin in high school. Damn it! I don't know what happened.
Kevin Owens, I watched the mixed match. Blah, blah, I can't even say it right now.
Isn't the worst? That's why I don't even try to say it
Mixed
anymore.
match challenge.
Mixed match
Yes,
challenge.
that-
Mixed match
I
challenge.
watched
Say that
that.
5 times fast.
Watch that today, and his interactions with Braun in their match from across the ring was by far one of the best things I've ever seen. The fact that the two of them are standing across this ring yelling at each other and screaming things that make absolutely no sense, but it gets me laughing and gets me interested in the match.
He really took Austin's advice back in the day really to heart. Just never shut up.
Oh yeah,
And
and it's great.
It's hilarious, and he's great at it, and he just makes the best out of every crappy situation he gets put in. And I would love to see him get elevated back to the main event. I don't know if that's a move to SmackDown is going to make that happen or what, but
Never should have left.
I think right now there's just so much talent in so few spots up there.
yeah.
I think he's kind of right now in the position where he's never going to be forgotten. He may not be doing exactly what you want
Yeah.
or are hoping for from him, but he's actually always going to be in a really good spot where even the feud with Braun, which paid off horribly for him, kind of looks like it might lead into something else.
Yeah.
Maybe, but at the very least, he's going to be featured. He's going to have
I
a
don't
good
think
spot.
he needs to be in a title picture all the time either. He's
No.
one of those guys that can make a career out of being a main eventer just on feuds.
Definitely. I do hope they return his mean streak, though. They softened him up with the Universal title way too much for my taste.
Make him the prize fighter again.
Yeah.
Make him
Yeah.
angry, come out, powerbomb someone onto the ring apron, and just walk away.
I think the best thing that could happen would be you flip him and Joe. Joe goes to Raw, KO goes to SmackDown, and whoever the babyface title holder is at that point for either the US or the WWE title, put him up against it and be like, I came over here because I want that.
Like, I'm enjoying Joe's mean streak.
I love Joe's trash talk.
Yeah.
I love Joe. I think he's the best trash talker in the company right now.
Joe and AJ actually reminded me of something we had watched a while back in SummerSlam 91, Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect, where that's the match to watch if you ever want to see what a street fight between two people that happen to know, quote-unquote, pro wrestling as their fighting style. That's what AJ Joe reminds me of.
Yeah.
It's two guys that know how to fight. It just how they happen to learn how to fight was, quote-unquote, pro wrestling.
Yeah. I think the pay-per-view should go more almost like the takeovers are, where it's more about the match and putting on a performance in a match than it is necessarily. I mean, obviously, it's pro wrestling. We need a story to get there. But I think the match itself, and I think that's something that's kind of lost on the main roster, is the physicality and the storytelling within the ring can outshine or be the feature. It doesn't have to be the story necessarily.
So we talked about this at one point.
Yeah.
That our opinion of it is that WWE was never a work rate company, and I don't think they ever should be. But they need to get back to doing better stories.
Yeah.
I need a good story to
They-
get me invested.
They would need one or the other. As of right now, they're not really doing either.
They have a little bit of work rate with Seth, definitely, but they've never been a work rate company.
Do you think and we've talked about this a little bit before too, but do you think maybe in the event that Hunter takes over completely, because I think you kind of see a little bit of that in NXT.
Oh,
I mean,
definitely.
you're getting stories, but he is allowing the talent and giving them the time to tell the stories in the ring.
Certainly. Definitely agree there. You need stories there. The problem is right now their characters on the main card or main roster have just been too much. I'm kind of the cool guy, and there's not been any well-defined characteristics for a lot of people
Yeah.
for a long time.
Right now, there's stories, but they're the wrong stories. I don't know. It's like they're doing storylines, but they all like the wrong person is turning half the time.
Does this all
Yeah.
come down to too much talent?
I wouldn't necessarily
Your roster's
say
too big?
too much. I would say it's not knowing what to do with them.
Only focusing on a handful of those guys extensively for storylines, and the rest just you focus on Roman, you focus on who he's fighting with, maybe a few other guys. Everybody else is thrown in the blender. Oh, we'll have those guys fight for no particular reason.
And I think with 3 hours, you've got time to tell multiple stories throughout the show. And that's one thing, everybody, and people are going to be sick of hearing me say this, but what made the Attitude Era great was the amount of stories. And I think Bischoff actually mentioned on his podcast
83
recently,
weeks.
83 weeks. He mentioned one of the, I guess, redeeming qualities of, what the heck, it's Vince Russo, was he gave everybody a story. At one point on Raw,
A bad story, but
regardless, everybody had a story, everybody had a purpose, everybody had a meaning. And whether you liked the story or not, a story was being told throughout, a show or a build. You know what I mean?
That was something we actually looked back at when we were comparing an older Raw versus newer Raw. And on the old Attitude Era Raw, you saw all of the kind of stories dovetailing together, too, in the course of the show. Like, okay, Shane has a match against Steve Blackman, but Edge and Christian come in and help out Shane because in the past they had kind of crossed paths with Shane and they were buddy-buddy for a while. And just everything kind of touched together and it wove together nicely. Whereas now everything is like, okay, this is this segment. And now we have a completely different segment. And
But you know what? For a while there, you saw glimpses of that in the last 6 to 8 months with WWE on Raw, especially. You saw glimpses of that where there was multiple stories going on, but they were kind of touching each other a little bit and intertwining just a little bit. and that has been the most compelling, I've seen Monday Night Raw in a while.
You know what,
And
though?
then it's kind of reverted back to obviously what you see now.
You know what? Now the problem is, you guys are talking about Attitude Era, all that. I remember as a kid, the stories going on. I didn't want to miss a single week. I had to watch every Monday.
No, I used to
Now-
be pissed when my parents made me
Yeah.
go to bed at 9
Now-
o'clock. Like I'm
Now you
really?
can literally just watch the pay-per-views, and you don't miss anything. The packages are so good. You get
Oh,
the
the
idea.
packages are phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
You can literally not watch wrestling, just watch a show, and there's just nothing going on in these Raws.
Well, I mean, a
sometimes.
testament. Our buddy, Jeff has watched a couple of shows with
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
He knows exactly what's going on because of all the promo packages leading into it. Which I think they do a fantastic job, and for the casual, watcher to bring in that casual fan, that's fantastic.
Right, but on the other hand, it's shooting themselves in the foot because now you're making your product so negligible.
Yeah.
What do you think being on network TV is going to do to that for SmackDown, especially? Like, you gotta have an amazing product to be able to, put that type of investment in.
It can only start pushing SmackDown from being the quote-unquote B show up to being at least on par with Raw.
One of my buddy John, who was on the last episode with us, who I work with, he brought up a good point. I don't know that it'll ever happen, but do you ever see like WrestleMania on network TV, bringing in ad revenue and stuff like that with the commercials, almost like a Super Bowl, type atmosphere?
No, not at least not the 7 hours or whatever it is right now.
No, I mean obviously you
But-
couldn't do that, but I mean, do you see that ever happening? Like being that big Super Bowl type event once a year on network TV?
I could see them maybe doing an event. I can't see WrestleMania.
If I'm watching WrestleMania and Michael Cole goes to commercial, get me out of there
He is the best
immediately.
at throwing it to commercial, though.
I can
Let's be
see
honest.
it now more than if you had asked me like 5 years ago. Purely because, yeah, you can still do this 7-hour show. Put 4 of it on the network.
On the network, and then
put the main 3 hours
on prime time.
Exactly.
Can you imagine the ad revenue that would bring in?
It'd be another Saudi Arabia show.
Off the charts.
Yeah.
Money for Fox and
Oh yeah.
whoever, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, I mean, we've touched on a lot here, guys.
Yeah.
This was fun.
Yeah.
We can keep going. We got a little bit of time left here, but I just wanted to kind of reiterate the fact that how much fun this has been.
We're glad you're enjoying yourself.
Yeah, good.
I am enjoying every moment of sitting here with you gentlemen. I mean, I use that term loosely, but we are having a lot of fun. So
I mean, do we want to make it unfun and talk about the first women's Hell in a Cell match?
yes,
Get everyone arguing?
yeah.
All right.
Because actually, all right. So when you guys had said that you wanted to compare the 2016 to now is something kind of do a comparison to comparison, I watched a couple matches. One of which was Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens.
Great
Awesome.
match.
Yep.
And then the women's Hell in a Cell, which see.
Well, you guys didn't like that match?
I have a slightly varying opinion. So I thought the match was pretty good. I thought the hard part was they tried to live up to some of the hardcore stuff, and Sasha Banks is too damn light to go through a table.
Yep. That was a big one.
That was a hard.
Let me go first.
All right.
Here he goes.
Let me
He
go
wants
first.
it. He wants
Oh,
it.
hold
Let
on.
him
I'm
have
going to sit back. Let me put some.
Let me
back.
go first.
All right, go.
So, the match was okay. If you're going to have the first Hell in a Cell match, do not put Charlotte and Sasha in it. At that point,
How funny the roles are reversed now, by the way.
right,
Like babyface and heel.
at that point in wrestling, there were at least, in my opinion, 2 better workers than both of them that could have been in that match. And whether it was for the title or not, still could have put on a better match than that one.
Who?
Becky Lynch.
Okay.
And personally, I think a Becky and Bayley match would have been much better than Sasha and Charlotte.
Interesting.
All right. So my take on it is, first off, shouldn't have had the title involved. What should have happened is Charlotte should have lost the belt to Bayley at SummerSlam, and Sasha should have caused it, and then it should have been Charlotte versus Sasha in the cell with an actual grudge to settle. Didn't need the title.
It's funny how this has gone full circle. We feel like the match should be a grudge, not just
It always should
Yep.
be a grudge.
there.
But I mean,
And-
those were the two. I mean, if I remember correctly, it wasn't that long ago. Those were the 2 hottest women on the roster at that point. So from like a marketing
Bayley
standpoint-
came out much hotter. The problem is they saddled her with nothing for so long that by the time she got into the title picture, she lost all
snooze fest,
momentum.
yeah.
The pop she was getting every single time she came out
When she first came in, yeah.
was
Remember when Sasha brought her out as her secret
Yeah,
partner? It was
yep.
ridiculous. You could have elevated both Bailey and someone else to face Bailey at Hell in a Cell for the title, not in a cell. Put the women in their own cell. Second, they tried to mimic the Undertaker-Mankind match way too much and did it very poorly. You had Sasha staggering around like Bambi around the outside of the cage to get to where the medical attention was instead of bringing it to her.
Yeah. You know what though? I think, and I know you guys disagree based on our conversations recently. I still think Charlotte by far is the best female performer there today.
What did you guys think about the match you had at this show?
I would put Becky right up there with her.
That was a great match.
And I thought that was a fantastic
I
match.
love that match.
Because who was in it?
Becky.
Charlotte and Becky.
It was a
Becky
good
is
match.
so good.
Despite Charlotte.
See,
Wow.
I feel the complete opposite. I feel like Charlotte doesn't have enough talent to work with.
Hold on. I want to hear this because everyone I ever talk to when I talk wrestling, they would say, "Oh yeah, Charlotte, she's the best." And I kind of get it because I feel like they just think she is because of what her name is. But you guys are the first people I've talked to that don't have that point of view. Please enlighten me.
When I'm watching the Mixed Match Challenge,
Right?
and Charlotte has a hard time locking in her finisher, her so-called signature move that she's supposed to be the best at.
Oh boy.
You actually watched the Mixed Match Challenge?
I did.
Okay.
It's entertaining to see how much fun they actually have with it.
I don't disagree with you because I watched the first one. I mean, I didn't watch them live. I kind of like watched them in succession. But no, continue though. Sorry.
When she has a hard time doing the figure eight and has to stop, look at, oh God, who are they facing? Naomi's legs.
No, Natalia.
No, it was Naomi.
Oh, no.
It was Naomi.
When she has to stop,
They look quite similar, so that's why I get confused.
at
Day One Glow, was that what it was?
yeah,
Whatever.
yeah, awful.
Stinks.
When she has to physically look at Naomi's legs, stop for a second, put them in the right position, and then go back to doing the bridge.
In fairness, Naomi's got tree trunks.
So
I mean, her ass is huge.
It's your signature move.
go back to Hell in a
get
Cell.
it.
They were going for the spot where Charlotte was supposed to grab Becky's leg and roll through and put her into the move, and she totally botched that. Charlotte is a crazy amazing athlete. I will never take that away from her. She is great at doing spots. The corkscrew moonsault to the outside always looks great. Anything that involves her working with someone else does not go well.
I still think it's people aren't able to work up to her level. I think she's on a whole different level than a lot of the other talent on the roster, and it's hard for her to maybe adjust down to their level, and it's harder for the other people to adjust up to her level.
It might be a mix of those things. I mean, I think this might have been her best match with Becky.
This has nothing to do with Charlotte Flair because I've never liked Ric Flair. That's controversial on its own, but
Yeah.
I'm with you on that one.
I've never been a Ric Flair fan, and to say it's like,
Okay,
oh,
you guys-
she's great because of her dad.
I'll stop talking now because if you guys say only Ric Flair, we can have another 2-hour show.
I'm not saying he's not great. He's never.
I'm a Flair fan.
He's maybe
Continue.
the best. But anyway,
Promo wise,
I think Becky and Charlotte just have a chemistry, probably because they are really good friends. That makes her matches better. I kind of almost agree with some of what they're saying because I think she's very athletic. I think she's really a good wrestler, but I don't think she's as
go back and watch Charlotte and Natty from NXT.
Yeah.
And
That was
you'll
Charlotte's kind of
see-
coming out.
and you'll see exactly why. Well,
But then we're
So
going to
hang
talk
on.
about Natty carrying her. But
Right.
Oh,
But I think Natty is. We've talked about
I'm
it
just gonna
before.
provoke this. I like
Natty
this.
is an invaluable asset to that company. And
Oh,
she needs
definitely.
to, when she's done in the ring, she's got to go to the performance center.
Oh,
Because
certainly.
100%.
how many people have credited Natty to what they are today, including Charlotte?
Oh yeah. I mean, look at Ronda. Half of what Ronda does is because
we need to keep working there.
Yeah. But-
agreed.
but for being her what third, fourth big match.
She just needs a bigger
she's-
repertoire.
she's
Her
not
timing
awful.
is her timing is good.
Yeah.
Like she has natural timing.
She does. She just has.
I
definitely
think a
needs more.
solid 2 to 3 month feud with Natty would go a long way with her.
She
with
also
Ronda.
needs to stop kind of looking just happy to be here.
Oh God.
Oh, we've said that
If
so many times.
If I
So many
see
times.
Ronda come out one more time with that goofy smile on her face, waving, and then she
Yeah.
has two expressions: happy to be here, walking out, and then
Scowly angry.
scowling at someone because they looked at her funny.
I thought for sure you were going to make the face.
I can't make that.
Come on,
So-
do it.
But that's also close to one of my issues.
Don't
with,
ever do that again.
That's one of my issues with Charlotte, though, is I don't think she sells well at all. She has like one for being in pain, and like she has this weird, awful grunt groan thing that
Oh.
is just grating.
Never mind. I was gonna say
So-
something bad. You got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm gonna go over that.
All right, go ahead.
Let's look at the women who are on both rosters right now. So you have Becky, Alexa, Nia, Naomi, Natalia, Ronda.
Foxy.
At least 4 of those I would put as better than. I'd put Alexa better than Charlotte.
I would
I'd put Becky better than Charlotte.
definitely.
I love Alexa.
I'd put Asuka better, but
Asuka.
I
100%.
understand this at least wrestling wise.
Isn't it so bad we just forget about Asuka now? Like,
What are they doing?
That's-
with her?
That's
That's
criminal.
a
Feuding
show
with
in
the
itself.
Iconics.
Okay.
So
All right.
I would put at least 5 to 6 women on the roster better than Charlotte. Especially Charlotte does not need to have the belt. I think she could be a lot better in a Kevin Owens style role where she's always going to be around. She doesn't always need the belt.
Yeah.
But the fact that she's a 7-time women's champion already, she's going to have her father's record beat by at this time
they wanted
next year.
They wanted to have that record. I think they just
Yeah.
want to get to 16.
She'll double her record by the
I
end of the next
agree with a
year.
lot of what you're saying, but you're completely wrong about Charlotte. There are
So-
not 5 other people better than
There
her
is
on
one
the
person. It's
roster.
Becky Lynch who's better than her.
My
Becky's
last
amazing. I
comment
will
on
not
Charlotte,
disagree with that at all. Or Alexa, because I'm a huge fan.
Last comment on Charlotte will be watch her try to take the lung blower into the bank statement. Every time, it's the most awkward, awful thing because she refuses to take the bump.
I think it's also the fact that she outweighs her by about 75 pounds.
It's not that much in. It's awful. It looks like the move is always in slow motion.
But I don't disagree with you on that one, I guess. Jacob, you look like you had something. No? Okay,
No,
Steve?
I'm done.
I'm so glad Becky won the title, and I'm so glad that she's like
I love
the heel,
heel
and
Becky.
people are just cheering the hell out of her. That's my favorite.
I miss
thing.
heel Charlotte.
Eh,
I miss heel
She's
Sasha.
better. She's definitely better in that role.
Oh, she's 100%.
I miss
better as
heel
heel.
Sasha because
Heel Sasha has to
babyface
happen.
Sasha stinks on ice. I'm just
Yep,
gonna put
agreed.
it out there.
yeah.
All right, guys. We hit the mark. I think we did it.
Yeah,
We didn't miss it.
I like this.
We didn't miss.
Oh.
See what you did there? Okay. Let's get the plugs in one more time. Missing the Mark Wrestling Podcast on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at @missingthemark_. And what about you guys? Where can we find you? What do you guys got next on the docket? Have you guys decided on the next show other than this one posting?
No, I don't think we have yet. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
we
fly by
haven't
the seat of our
just yet.
pants a bit.
Yeah.
'Kay.
We'll look about that week and then record it
That's fair.
real soon. Facebook is This Week in Wrestling History. Twitter is WrestleHistPod.
Oh, that's cute. You guys did
Yeah.
it together.
We're
Because
good like that.
I always forget it. I can never remember what it is.
Let's say email address wrestlinghistorypodcast@gmail.com. We're on Google Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts, Google something.
Somewhere on
Spotify
Google.
and iTunes.
And if you have any suggestions, let us know. Shoot us an email because we'll probably take it into consideration.
Oh, yeah.
Because
We'll
again,
take
we fly by the seat of
suggestions.
our pants.
Yeah, I mean, this was a lot of fun, guys. Thanks for coming over.
No problem. Thank
Thanks
you for having us.
doing this with us, and this was fun. Steve, what do you think? Anything you want to throw out there?
No, I could keep talking another hour if you guys wanted to, but
We can do. Let's do this again. We'll do this another time.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll make some time to get on there. And
After the next big gimmick pay-per-view.
Maybe around Mania time.
we should only have them on for gimmick pay-per-views because their whole thing is they should be less of them. We should only have them on for gimmick pay-per-views.
That's
That'd be
true.
awesome.
that's
So, what'd you guys think of TLC?
yuck. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. Thanks to This Week in Wrestling History, you guys for joining us, Jacob and Ryan, and for Steve and myself, Missing the Mark Wrestling Podcast. And thank you guys for listening.